Hello and welcome to Comms Life. I'm your host, Tom Billinghurst. Every week, we take you on a deep dive into the topics and trends shaping the communications industry and beyond. The future is a scary place, especially when we can't seem to see past the immediate confines of our quarantined lives. But inevitably, the future will arrive. Whether us mere mortals will be eliminated by a race of superhumans powered by artificial intelligence, or whether we will colonize and inhabit a far-flung planet in our solar system, the notion of the future has been a source of fascination and raging debate since time immemorial. So what will it look like? And how do you begin to report on a time and space that doesn't yet exist? Joining us to discuss these questions and more is Kelsey Warner, Future Editor at The National, the Middle East's leading international English language newspaper. Kelsey, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for inviting me. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you. So just before we dive into the topic, for anyone that isn't maybe familiar with the title, Future Editor, what do you do?
What we're doing at The National really is trying to develop a beat around technology and all of its implications, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, all of the sort of dystopic things that you referenced in the start, but also the existential challenge of climate change. So I really do think that there's this twofold thing happening right now, where we're at this epochal moment, both for the planet as well as for technology. And sort of this convergence is something that needs to be explored, and the implications of all of these things need to be explored. But then also, 6 months ago, we didn't know that a pandemic was going to hit in Q1 2020, despite all of the warnings from scientists that this was exactly what was going to happen. So it's beyond technology. The future editor really is looking at what are the existential challenges that humanity is facing, and how does human potential, how does our human adaptability, our ingenuity, our innovation, how do we actually solve our way out of and into a better future?
That's an amazing job description. What do you want to do? I want to tackle the biggest existential challenges that mankind faces in my writing every day.
I really do believe it's about that. It's not about, what is Apple doing last week? It's what role should big tech be playing in our lives, and who are the players? How do we understand this economically, sociologically? Like, there's so many layers into understanding this, but ultimately, when I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about human potential.
Is there an area, theme, or topic that you frequently cover that you come across and you think, yeah, this is going to be a game changer in terms of whether it's AI, automation, 5G?
So, this morning I published a story on why Arabic is so difficult for machine learning to grapple, to handle and to understand. Why is Arabic? And so really it's digging into, I think, representation and equity in artificial intelligence. This idea of AI, and as we're building it, it can't be the remit of the few. And right now, China and America are really leading on AI. For me, the topic around just the UAE's vantage point and where it's investing its human capital, its actual capital, to develop these systems is fascinating. And it's so important that this region, has a voice and a stake.
So let's talk about the region then, because it wouldn't be fair to say that the country we live in is obsessed with the future, but it certainly has a fixation with it, right? It has future accelerators. It has a museum of the future, inshallah, coming soon. Do you think it has its approach to the future right?
Absolutely. My first story coincided with the opening of the Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence, which will open its doors for its first class in January. You really do have to separate out Dubai, city of the future, as it's written and depicted in Western media, and what is actually going on in terms of developing the talent that we're going to need. I actually think the UAE's position on its future state has a lot to do with, UAE Vision 2030, Gadan 21. You have to look at their economic plans. And this is very much framed around its ambitions to diversify away from oil and future-proof itself and be relevant, on a global stage, and not just relevant, but leading and being a forerunner and being a convener. So I really see the UAE as being in a unique position to convene some of the biggest, minds, companies.
The philosopher, one of my favorite contemporary philosophers at the moment, Yuval Noah Harari, said, in a world deluged by information, clarity is power. Do you think the newspaper still offers that clarity?
I think that's probably exactly what it does. I mean, the very nature of sitting with a printed document, I mean, even if it's a document on your iPad, you're sitting with something and having to actually confront it, and having to confront something without all this other, and just taking a step back and taking a moment. I think, clarity is what we are always trying to offer. And as somebody who covers future, all things future, I try not to be part of that primal scream that we all seem to be taking part in on social media, of just moving sidewalks, flying cars, you've got to try to actually, I try to be not that at all. To your actual exact point, I want to be that moment where you take a step back and think about a larger question.
How much longer will we have a nice, crisp copy of a newspaper delivered to our front doors?
I think we will always engage with the news in a way that feels tactile, in a way that, we are not just going to be reading a single headline on our Apple Watch. It will always, we will always crave more information.
Has the rise of social media been a good thing or a bad thing for media, and where is it going from here?
I think social media has been horrible. And in the last decade, it's been a really pernicious force that's wrought more damage than good. I think the erosion of the business model for journalism wrought by social media. I mean, social media basically creates a fire hose for certain media companies if you're willing to play the game. But if you don't play the game, you get locked. You can very easily be locked out. And I think it's influenced our news consumption in a way that we need to think about. And I think it's been bad for local news as well. I think social media does a wonderful job of bearing witness to what individuals are experiencing, and that is beautiful, and I don't want to take that away. However, that's just one facet of what a journalist does. We bear witness, but we also rely on experts. We also contextualize. We look to the data.
Do you think there's a generational shift in terms of our attention spans, our ability to engage with well-researched, well-written content?
I think the attention span thing is a myth. Think about how thoughtful our generation is, how advocacy-oriented our generation is, and how much, you go on Twitter, how much we value being well-informed. You will be, pilloried in the town square if you don't come correct on your facts.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because we have seen many a leader on the political stage say something that is factually incorrect. I mean, intrinsically wrong, and can be verified and checked by the best sources out there. But they will stick to a line and continue saying it and repeating it. So there's like this fatigue ad infinitum, saying something that's wrong, and then turn around a couple of days later and say, no, I didn't say that. I said the complete opposite. Mm-hmm. How does that work for you guys reporting on what's going on?
I mean, I think that's separate from attention span and has to do with our disturbing relationship with truth these days. That has to do also with social media. So these themes of truth, social media, attention span, and what you choose to pay attention to.
Is there another way that we can use technology to not replace the human elements in the future of news and media?
Sure. That's happening across all sectors. We're all having our jobs upended in some way by the rise of automation. Automation is only going to get better and more sophisticated, and right now what it can do is actually fairly limited, and it's going to change pretty rapidly. But one way I can see using the bots for good really is, you know, the diligence of a reporter writ large on a bot army, sure.
How did the disruption of COVID-19 impact your job?
Hired to do this job, I really thought of it as almost a twofold. We're talking about planet Earth, climate change, and the implication overlay of this epochal advancement in technology that we're seeing. And the pandemic really has created this almost third track in my mind around global health.
Wow.
And the health of ourselves. I was thinking health of our planet. Now I think health of our planet, health of ourselves, and then health of our technology. And how do we build technology that really is its highest good and highest purpose?
So it has quite literally created a separate, distinct storytelling pillar that you now think we're going to have to cover this in the years to come because
Absolutely.
of the fundamental shift it has affected.
Absolutely. This is the Great Depression. This is World War II. This is the Spanish flu of 1918, all kind of rolled into one. Its implications are so vast, especially now that we actually do have technology that we can harness to hopefully deploy a vaccine at a historic rate, to hopefully do this track and trace that we're now all experts on.
As we've pointed out, the rise of digital and social is having an impact, whether good or bad, on news reporting and the media landscape. One person that has outlined and charted this ongoing struggle between the old and the new mediums is Rob Orchard, the owner of Slow Journalism, which is a company that publishes a quarterly magazine called Delayed Gratification, which goes back 3 months and looks at stories that may have disappeared from the news cycle, gets under the skin and does a real long, slow read, 4,000 word feature. In 2015, so 5 years ago, he talked about the future of media in the next 10 years during a TED Talk in Madrid. Let's just listen to what he had to say.
We need to understand one very fundamental thing about a change in the news media recently, which is that being first has become much more important than being right. Google also cares about volume. The more news stories that your news organization puts out there, the higher you'll come in the rankings, which means that journalists around the world find themselves having to write more and more stories with fewer and fewer resources and less time. 10 years from now, there won't be a single printed newspaper left in the developed world. Many major news organizations will have closed. Robo-journalism and news scraped from social media websites will be delivered to you according to your digital preferences, instantly and for free. News organizations which do survive will continue to write preemptive news stories, as with the Amanda Knox case, and 99 times out of 100, they will get away with it. There will be a constant, unremitting downward pressure on quality. Most people won't even notice. Most people will be happy enough. They won't think about what has been lost. But some people will have an appetite for a different sort of journalism. A journalism which values journalists, which puts them at the heart of stories, which gives them the time to do what they do best, which follows up on stories after everybody else has moved on, which values perspective and hindsight over immediate knee-jerk reaction.
Kelsey, thanks for sticking around. We got your thoughts on the future from a professional perspective, but now I think we'd like to take a dive under the skin, not in an alarming way or a way that the authorities should be contacted, but we'd like to get up close and personal and get to know you as a person a little bit better. Are you up for some quickfire questions?
Sure.
Favorite flavor ice cream?
Chocolate.
TV and film or books?
Books. I mean, my TV habits are truly embarrassing, so I'll say books.
Okay, next question. What are your TV habits?
Oh, God. Real Housewives are a real issue, but I will say I'm reading Eric Larson's. No, new book, The Splendid and the Vile, about Churchill's leadership during World War II and the Blitz. Eric Larson, incredible.
Nice light read.
Yes, but a good balance to The Real Housewives of New York.
Earliest childhood memory?
Sitting in a pack and play in the middle of a giant green field. We apparently were at a golf tournament.
Your ideal Friday morning routine?
French press, Arabica coffee, for sure. Little news reading, of course. Real Housewives of New York episode to bring this full circle. And then my favorite 11 o'clock yoga class at Body Tree in Abu Dhabi.
If you weren't a journalist, what would you choose to be?
A nurse. You've got to look at what they're doing right now. And even before COVID-19, I think of them sort of as like the pro athletes of our workforce in some ways. They're amazing.
Fantastic. Kelsey, that was wonderful to get your thoughts and a really interesting conversation. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Comms Life. For more episodes, you can download the Comms Life podcast from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Keep up to date with everything from the Comms Life team by following our social media pages on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Stay safe and be well.